2 times 27 is 54, plus 10 points for the project, 64. 100 minus 64 is 36. How many questions did I write? Oops, I got carried away. I wrote 38 questions. You'll have to vote on, help me decide which ones to scratch out when we're finished. Let's go down the list, and then when we're finished going down the list, you can tell me which two to get rid of. I don't care. Get rid of whatever you want. Question number 1. Ready? Involves, I think we've met this guy before. I'm pretty sure we've met this gentleman before. Somebody by the name of Rich Uncle. And Rich Uncle dies and leaves you some property. In other words, question 1, inherited property. Now remember, the way to study for my final exams is very simple. Once you know the subject matter of the questions, go back to your quizzes covering that subject matter. Make sure that you understand why the correct answers are correct and correspondingly why the wrong choices are wrong. If you do, you're done. If you don't, then go back to the textbook or the cases or whatever until you do understand it. And because my final exams in terms of subject matter scope basically don't depart from what you've seen on the quizzes. How do people fail themselves in my classes? They must not try. Or they must, stay up all night drinking the night before or something. I don't know how it works. Number 2 is a maker's depreciation question. Ooh, no depreciation question. Number 3, something about sending your kids to private school. I think we talked about that. The cost of sending your kids to private school. What can you do with that? Number 4. I know you love this subject. Depreciation recapture. Depreciation recapture. Otherwise known as Section 1245. Number 5. Amortization of intangibles. Number 6. Something I just told you 10 minutes ago. Sorry, 12 minutes ago. In other words, something from today's topics. That's all I'm going to say. Number 7. What do you do when you end up with an NOL? NOL, net operating loss. What do you do with a net operating loss? NOL. Number 8. Oh, you remember this. Remember when we talked about the difference between a stock market investor and a day trader? Remember the 6 computer screen tests and all that? That's number 8. Number 9, educational expenses. The cost of being educated. Not the education you're doing now. I mean the education you'll be doing 3 or 4 years from now when you're CPAs. Number 10, qualified small business stock, which means either Section 1202 or perhaps Section 1244. Remember, there are two code sections that give tax benefits for investment in qualified small business stock. One of those code sections rewards you on the upside, the other takes care of you on the downside. Number 10, qualified small business stock. Number 11. Well, never mind. There's one I'm going to scratch out myself. Never mind. Number 12. Number 11, blank space. Number 12. Something we just talked about 6 minutes ago. In other words, something from the AICPA statements. $13, home office deduction. $14, something I told you 6.5 minutes ago. Another AICPA statements question. $15, a very sort of general question about the concept of tax basis. Just a question to make sure you understand what we mean by tax basis and what you do with it, and etc. 16. Oh, you'll love this one. It's a whole page long. This is all question 16. Medical expenses. Question 16 is a laundry list question. It's a laundry list question. In other words, it's a whole list of stuff. Bang, 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 bang. A whole list of stuff. And your job is to pick out either the items that really are deductible as medical expenses, or, depending upon how I ask the question, the stuff that's not deductible as medical expenses. So, for example, if you saw facelifts, plastic surgery to get a facelift, that's not deductible, right? So go back, we've talked about what's deductible and what's not. Look, don't be thrown off by the fact that a question is a whole page long, because laundry list questions, here's a secret, laundry list questions like this are among the easiest questions you'll ever have on a CPA exam, because even though there's a list of 15 or 20 things, once you find any two that are correct, then you can start eliminating some of the answer choices that don't contain those two, because the answer choices are all various combinations of items. They're really very simple. Just don't be intimidated by them. 17. No, I'm scratching that one out. 17, blank space. 18. Oh, LIFO, FIFO, you have a bunch of stock in your stock portfolio, and you forget to tell your broker which stock to sell when you want to sell some of it but not all of it, and remember that discussion? $19, something about a covenant not to compete, a non-compete agreement. What's the treatment of the cost of a non-compete agreement for tax purposes? Number 20. Do you remember the case that you read involving the musician, the guy with the antique? Go back and reread the case. Number 20. 21. 21 is a little bit difficult to describe, but I'll try. It's sort of a laundry list, a shorter laundry list. A, B, C, D is the laundry list. And the question is, which one of these things, A, B, C, or D, is the Internal Revenue Service most suspicious of most of the time? Something that the IRS is usually suspicious of when they see it on a tax return. Don't worry, you'll know it when you see it. Sorry, there's no, I don't have any better way of explaining it without giving away the whole question. So, and I know you don't want me to do that. 22. Well, it's fairly typical CPA exam type question about basis. But this is one of those basis questions that could just as easily be a question on the financial reporting part of the CPA exam because it has to do with capitalization rules. What expenses in connection with acquiring a long-lived asset have to be capitalized? We've talked about that. And as a hint, I mean, this could be a tax question or it could be a financial accounting question. And the answer would be the same either way. 23, something about what are the limits on charitable contribution deductions? There are limits. You cannot deduct 100% of your gross income as charitable contributions and zero out, end up with zero net income. There are limits on how much you can annually deduct as charitable contributions. 24 is, well, another amortization of intangibles question. We had one of those already. Maybe we only need one. I don't know. 25. Well, some of you will be happy with this question. 25 is a question about sugar babies. Sort of. 26, question about gambling. 27, allow me to read you. I'll actually read you the first line of this question. Ready? And when I read it to you, you'll know what it's about. Nancy is a U.S. citizen who lives and works in Paris. A U.S. taxpayer who lives and works in some other country, not Antarctica, a real country. Did we talk about the fact that Texas is a community property state? And that whether you live in a community property state or a state like Oklahoma, which is not a community property state, there are certain federal income tax results sometimes. Did we discuss that? I think we did. You may want to refresh your recollection by consulting your notes. $29 is another maker's depreciation question. $30 is something I told you about 25 minutes ago about like-kind exchanges. Like-kind exchange. Code section 1031. $31 is another laundry list question. I'll actually read you the question. I'm not going to tell you what's on the laundry list, but I'll read you the question. Which, if any, of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which, if any, of these are deductible or potentially deductible by self-employed CPAs? It's just a list of things that maybe or maybe not deductible, and you tell me whether any of them or some of them are, and if so, which ones. Like laundry list question. $32. Boy, this goes way back. Remember way long time ago, we talked about, remember those people, the couple that found the gold coins in California? Remember the people that found the gold coins on their property? And we talked about, finding things, and you read that New York Times article called "The Tax Consequences of Lucky Break." It's that's what question 32 is about. $33. Another home office deduction question. Okay, 34, I'm scratching out myself. Nah, I didn't do that. 35. Okay, now listen carefully. You remember, it wasn't that long ago. You remember, we discussed, I think it was at the end of chapter 8. I think it's at the end of chapter 8. Not everybody has to file a tax return. The rule is what you have to file, or you don't have to file a tax return, generally, based on your level of gross income for the year. So, if you only make $300 in a year, you don't need to file a tax return because the threshold is much higher than that. The threshold is based on gross income. Now, but that's not the question. It's just sort of the area of the question. When we had that conversation in class, we also talked about some exceptions. There are certain circumstances in which, even though you only earned, $800 for the year, and you're way below actually being required to file a tax return, there are some circumstances in which you might be well advised to file a tax return anyway. Consult your notes. 36. Cancellation of debt income. 37, I'm going to scratch out myself. 38, wash sales. Well, I was going to ask you, but I've already scratched out. Now I've scratched out about 4 of these. So now instead of asking you, well, okay, I'll go ahead and ask. So I scratched out number 11, 17, 34, and 37. Now, are there any of these questions, these subject matter area questions that I mentioned, that you would like to request not be on the final exam? Okay. Now we went through 38, I took away 4, so we're now down to 34, and we need 36. So I need your suggestions now for 2 more subject matter areas to ask about. And my pen, I'm ready.
Lisa said filing status.
What?
She wants filing status.
Married or single?
Well,
What? That's a bonus. Yeah. I wasn't going to tell you again because I knew I promised you many times that it was going to be a partnership basis calculation. That's the bonus question. Yes, there is a bonus question. You can do the calculation, you do the arithmetic on your exam form, and then just write the number on the back of your Scantron. Yes, I'm sorry, you need to bring a Scantron. Okay, so what was that? Like getting married by Elvis on December 31st in Las Vegas or something like that?
Sure.
Well, I just read within the last 24 hours, some famous actor, singer couple got married by Elvis in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. Man, crazy things happen. So what, suggestion number one is filing status. Okay, I need some more suggestions. Okay, I'm gonna start here. Suggestion.
More to stuff here today.
More today's stuff?
Yeah. At least it's still relevant.
And by today's stuff, do you mean the AICPA statements? Do you mean 1031? Do you mean the social security fund? What do you mean today? More today. Okay. Section what? 1231? That's pretty obscure. Okay, I'll write it down. Business expenses. I've already got that. That's the one, that's the question that says,
Yeah.
what can a self-employed CPA do? Okay? And? What? What kind of property?
Types of properties.
Oh, like, what kind of, like, what? Give me a for example question. Classification of property? Very brave. And? Travel expenses? Well, that's easy. If you go to a conference, you travel and you spend more days working than playing, you can deduct 100% of your airfare, right? Okay. Travel expenses. What? Point. Oh, you got more, I guess you want more today, so you agree with Max? More today. Yeah. Sir, more wash sales? Well, the answer is 30 days. What? Sir? Pass?
I'm good.
I keep you guys to,
Vacation home expenses? Vacation home expenses?
you mean that 14-day rule?
Yeah.
How many chances do you get to create your own exam? What? Okay, I will make some choices. Now, let's go over the rules of what will happen. First of all, when do we get together for this final exam? Next Tuesday at 4:30 in this room, right? Do you have other exams that day?
No.
You have an exam later today though, right?
Yeah.
Is it final exam or just?
Yeah.
And then how many after that?
2.
This one and plus one other?
Audit.
When is audit?
Monday through Friday. Pick a day.
4:30.
Oh, another one of those go up to
Yeah.
the. No, I'm gonna be here because they're gonna be watching you with my eyes. Speaking of that, don't sit right next to anybody. Spread out. And don't sit next to anybody who you always sit by. You two, don't sit together. You guys, don't sit together. Don't sit together. don't sit together. Go ahead and spread out before I get here. If I don't like the way you're sitting when I get here, I'm gonna move you. And the exam will not start until you're sitting where I want you to sit. Now, the university lectures us faculty from time to time about how to maintain academic integrity in exam. Now, some of the suggestions are a little extreme. Let's see. Students like to write answers on their baseball hats, and then they have it on their baseball hat, and they take off their hat to scratch their head and look at the answer and put the hat back on. Well, apparently I'm supposed to come around and take your hat off and see if you have it. Students like to put cheat sheets up their sleeves. So apparently I'm supposed to come around and roll up all your sleeves and see what you've got in there, or if you've written anything on your hands or arms. Let's see, what else? Students like to write little tiny notes on their water bottles, or little cheat sheets, so I'm supposed to come around and lift up all your water bottles and look underneath to see what's written on your water bottles. Oh. Speaking of water, you will not leave this room to go to the restroom during the exam. Go before. If you think there's even a remote possibility that you might want to go to the restroom, go before, because when you leave this room, you turn in your exam and you're finished. Did I mention that I'm a stickler for academic integrity? I know things are a little loose in here during these quizzes, I'm aware of that. But on this exam, the people who know the material are going to score well, and the people who don't know the material are going to do poorly. So I hope you've all studied all semester and learned this material, because you will have no chances to cheat on this exam. Zero. And I'm not going to be here by myself. I will also have at least one helper to help me watch you while you're taking the exam. So I hope you don't mind being stared at. Got it? What questions do you have? Now, and one more thing. There's no more questions with me. You're on your own. Occasionally, once in a blue moon, something I said today in terms of going over the quiz content or something, which I always do. Sometimes people are legitimately confused about what I meant. And, if you have a question, you can try me. But chances are better than 50-50 that I'll just write you back and say, sorry, I'm not going to address that question. If I ever get a question from any of you that I do choose to answer, then I will answer it for the entire class by going and sending you a group email through. I don't want anybody, none of you, will have any information that the rest of the class doesn't have. And you should feel good about that. Nobody can come see me and start like, oh, please tell me, give me more hints about the. I'm not gonna have that conversation with you. So don't even try. This test is intended to find out how much you've learned this semester. This is graduate school, and you guys are all smart people. Hope you've dedicated yourself to learning tax. This course too, particularly some of the general concepts and the language, the words and the terminology, lays the foundation for your corporate tax class with Steve over the summer. A lot of this, corporate tax, I'm not talking about humans anymore so much. Well, we're talking about shareholders to a certain extent, but you'll be happily surprised to find out, that you now have a strong foundation in tax that will help you as you start taking Steve's course over the summer. I'm curious, I heard the comments that Steve made about these ring binders that Kathleen has for you. I had no idea. I'm going to bust up to Kathleen's office this afternoon and take a look at these tax questions in there. Ooh, maybe I'll get an idea. No, never mind. I'm not going to get an idea for the final exam. I've already done that. Last time. Okay, questions, complaints?
I have a question. What type of Scantron do we need?
The skinny green ones.
Okay.
Not, does that help?
Yeah.
Isn't there just one kind of skinny green one?
I think there's only one skinny green one.
Is there a fat green one too?
No, I think that one's blue.
It's the green one, this long and tall and skinny. Yeah, like that one. Thank you. All right, so next Tuesday at 4:30, right? See you then.